Alright boys, today's the day. After years of community criticism and complaints, Call of Duty has finally decided to address the matchmaking. And as we can see in this glorious blog post, they have told us nothing. They actually told us fucking nothing, dude. Well, that was a bit of a doozy. Welcome back to Modern Warfare 3, everybody. And yeah, in case you missed it, today, Call of Duty put out a blog post finally addressing the matchmaking. They basically just explained the way it's tuned, some of the experiments that they've done with it over the years, and they really tried to emphasize the fact that the matchmaking's purpose is to ensure that all players are having fun and want to keep engaging with the game. As you can see, it's doing a great job. Now, spoiler alert, like I kind of mentioned in the intro, the blog really doesn't tell us very much that we didn't already know, but there were a couple interesting things in there I wanted to talk about, and I kind of wanted to get my thoughts organized in a video because I did see on Twitter this matchmaking thing has now left the Call of Duty community, and there's a lot of people commenting on it that don't really know what's going on. So yeah, that's pretty much the plan for today. Just gonna hop in and go on my millionth rant about this game's matchmaking. As always, make sure you leave a like if you are enjoying the video and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And sorry in advance if my rambling is all over the place. I really got to start scripting these videos. So yeah, like I said, the blog post didn't really give us a whole ton of note, at least as far as information we didn't already have or like had sort of figured out on our own, you know? Which a lot of people are sort of memeing about because this is just more in keeping with Activision's historic practice of just not telling us anything about the matchmaking. What the fuck was that spawn? But yeah, for those of you guys outside the Call of Duty community or who maybe, I don't know, just haven't been paying attention, Joe Seacott addressed the matchmaking back in like Modern Warfare 2019 one time at like an event because FaZe Swag asked him about it, and then I don't think they've ever officially discussed it again. Now, obviously, it is a positive thing that they are actually addressing it. You know, it shows that they care to at least some degree that this is an issue for us. But still, people are, you know, understandably upset that this blog post still really didn't tell us anything particularly of note that we didn't already kind of know about. And one point that they did hit in the blog was that, you know, the whole point of the matchmaking was to ensure player retention and that everybody's having a good time or whatever, and they personally feel that this is the best way to do it, so they basically said they're not going to be removing it or changing it anytime soon. Anyway, the blog then briefly went over how the matchmaking is tuned. It talked about some of the different stuff that it takes into consideration, obviously skill being a big part of it. They also said that connection was a big part of it, which, by the way, actually, this is one point of contention I did have with this blog post, because it claimed that ping is king, right? It parroted that old saying that David Vonderhaar had, ping is king. That's the most important thing when making these matches is, you know, the connection of the players in the lobby. But that can't actually be true because it's well documented that your connection gets worse as you start playing better, right? Like multiple different YouTubers, content creators, and just, you know, people who study the game in general have noted that if you play an extended session and start playing like really well on a consistent basis, your matches will periodically be on worse and worse ping as the game tries to find you something in your skill bracket or whatever your perceived skill bracket is. Obviously, connection has to play a part in it, otherwise we'd all be playing matches on like 10,000 ping every other game. But at some point, I am convinced that is superseded by, you know, the skill aspect of the matchmaking system. Like if the game can't find you a match that it deems appropriate within, you know, 50 ping, it's gonna go to 60 ping or 75 ping or whatever it is, because I've played multiple matches on over 100 ping, and I'm not even that good at this game. I can't imagine how bad it gets for people who are like pros or even just, you know, top tier pub players. So yeah, that's pretty much what they mentioned as far as the how and the why of the matchmaking system, which, like I said, a lot of people weren't really happy with because it didn't really tell us anything particularly new in terms of what's going on behind the scenes anyway. Oh, which, by the way, as a side note, please, for the love of God, do not take this as an excuse to go like harass the devs on Twitter or whatever. I've talked about it a million times. 99% of what goes on with the matchmaking in particular, both in terms of how it's implemented and the communication surrounding it, like just their general refusal to talk about it, literally none of that is actually the fault of the developers. It's all decisions being made from like up top, right? And like especially what with all the layoffs and stuff that have been happening recently, it's just not a good thing to go around harassing devs right now, dude. Trust me, I've got a whole video planned on that shit, but I've seen a lot of people in this community like laughing at the devs who got laid off from Call of Duty, like, oh, you should have fixed the matchmaking and sucked at your job less. And it's like 99% of what is wrong with this game is the fault of the people doing the firing, not the people getting fired. You are literally making fun of the wrong people for no reason other than you're upset about your video game. Like, please calm down. Now, that being said, if you want to go harass Bobby Kotick on Twitter, be my guest. That dude's definitely done more than enough to deserve it. But anyway, getting back on track here a little bit, there were a couple of interesting things in the blog post that I did want to cover, just because it was actually new information, and to be honest, some of it was pretty good. So yeah, I actually said something nice. How about that? Now, the first interesting thing, at least for me, is that apparently they did test turning off the skill-based matchmaking in like certain instances. Allegedly, anyway. I mean, they didn't really tell us when this was done or which player groups this was done for. But yeah, they allegedly ended up turning off the skill-based matchmaking at some point for some population of players to see, you know, what the effect would be. And according to them, retention dropped through the floor during the period that they did this. Dude. Dude, can I have like one peaceful lobby here, please? Like, seriously. I haven't played this game in 2 weeks. What is the point of the skill-based matchmaking if it's just gonna do this? Case in point, right here. So yeah, according to Activision or whoever did this study, turning off the matchmaking for whatever populations they did it for does not actually help as far as retention goes. Apparently, it makes people play the game less, which they're equating to mean the game is less fun. But here's what I want to know, right? What were the conditions for this study? Because the thing is, there are 1,000,001 things in Call of Duty that could have impacted how this data turned out. What population was this done to? Was this study conducted through a balance of casual and hardcore players, or was it strictly the lowest common denominator? Because we know the lowest common denominator is the one they want to protect the most, right? Was it playlist specific? Like, did they only turn it off in shipment? Because that would honestly probably be miserable. How about when was the study done? Was it done at the beginning of a season, or was it done at the very end of a season when everybody was kind of just waiting for the next thing to come out? Was shipment 24/7 in the game? Because think about it like this, a lot of the people sitting in this playlist right now are people trying to grind camos. It is entirely possible a bunch of camo grinders will probably have less patience than people just trying to play the game. And I want to make this clear, I'm not trying to, discount the results of this study, right? If this is what it says, this is what it says. The point that I am trying to make here, though, is that there are a lot of factors that could have impacted player retention beyond just, oh, we changed the matchmaking and then people played the game less, therefore changing the matchmaking is bad. Dude, what is happening? And again, the main thing here is that they did not tell us the details of this study. They just said, hey, a study was done, here are the results. Like, was this study done in the last 2 weeks? Because I haven't even played this game in the last 2 weeks. If that's the case, I am one of the biggest critics of this game's matchmaking, and I was literally not a part of the study. Like, now, the one nice thing is that they may actually be releasing the results of that study. I'm not sure. The blog post mentioned them releasing some kind of optics about the matchmaking in the near future. I don't know if that's the exact results of the study or if it has something to do with, like, how the matchmaking is tuned. I didn't really understand that part, but the fact that they're telling us more is a good thing, at least. Like I said, one of the biggest criticisms about the matchmaking is just the fact that they refuse to talk about it, and nobody knows what's happening. Anyway, the last interesting thing that they ended up mentioning was they did say that they are planning on tuning the matchmaking to some degree for high-skilled players, which on the surface seems like a good thing. After years of community complaints, they're finally going to at least take a look at adjusting this thing. But to be fair, I'm not super excited for any massive changes to come, because for one thing, I would not be surprised if this is one of those things where they're just gonna say, yeah, we're gonna take a look at it, just to placate us, and then like 6 months later when people remember, hey, they said that, they'll just be like, yeah, we took a look at it, didn't like what we saw, so we left it as is. The other piece of this, which is probably more likely, is that there's a very high chance I am not going to be in the skill bracket that they're looking at adjusting, because even if they do make any kind of adjustments, if I had to guess, on some level, the announcement and probably any changes that actually end up getting made are just gonna be something to get content creators to shut the fuck up and stop whining finally. Because to be fair, on some level, a lot of this discourse is driven by content creators. There is a good reason for it. It does affect everybody. Like, it affects my lobbies too. This isn't just, oh, content creators are complaining and then, the rest of the community kind of just follows suit. Like, it is a real problem. But I don't know, I wonder if on some level they're like, well, if we fix things for content creators, they'll shut up and then people will stop whining about it and, this whole thing will go away and we can continue manipulating lobbies for money like we always have. By the way, not for nothing, but this is the 3rd or 4th, I don't even know how many games I've played so far, in a row that has been absolutely awful. Like, I understand it's shipment, dude, but I haven't played this game in 2 weeks. Is this really necessary? This is the fun I'm supposed to have on the game, really? Although, actually, there was one more thing I forgot to mention. As far as cool stuff mentioned in the blog post goes, they did deny the accusations that there is a skill-based hit registration, skill-based damage, skill-based aim assist, any of that shit. They basically said that, in spite of the matchmaking manipulating your lobby, it's not actually manipulating your experience within the lobby. Now, sure, they could be lying, but I somehow doubt it. I've never really been one to believe in those kinds of conspiracy theories in the first place. Anyway, that last point about whether or not those changes to the matchmaking will affect me actually kind of leads me nicely into the next point, which was I wanted to sort of just summarize why this whole matchmaking thing is an issue. Because for one thing, what with the blog post today, I have seen that this discussion, at least on Twitter, has sort of left the Call of Duty community and has reached a lot of people who don't really engage with the game and maybe don't understand why this is an issue. And also, I know a lot of you guys, especially a lot of you newer guys, are not from my Call of Duty stuff, so you probably don't play this game. So maybe it'll be informative, I don't know. Now, I'd like to preface this part of the rant by saying I am a Dota 2 player. For anybody who does not know, Dota 2 is notorious for having one of the most competitive unranked experiences in all of gaming. Realistically, the only difference between unranked and ranked matches in Dota 2 is that in unranked, sometimes some of the players in the game will not be quite up to date on what the meta is, and obviously, since you don't get anything for winning or losing, sometimes people will take the game a little bit less seriously. However, because Dota was designed to be a competitive game, and because unranked does use an elo-based matchmaking system, you just can't see what your elo is, the games end up being pretty competitive anyway. I would argue unranked matches in Dota 2 are more competitive than ranked matches in some other games. The reason I'm bringing this up is I want to point out that I understand this looks silly to people outside the Call of Duty community, right? Like if you're a Valorant player or a Counter-Strike player or a League of Legends player, I don't know, whatever fucking game it is that you like to play, I totally get how on the surface this debate just looks like good players wanting to smurf and that's it. But it's so much more of a nuanced issue than that, dude. And of course this is being discussed on Twitter, so like, you know, people are trying to fit a nuanced issue into 255 characters. That shit's never gonna work. But there's a few different reasons why creating a quick play experience as competitive as the one Call of Duty is trying to create becomes problematic and gets boring pretty quickly due to lack of variety. For one thing, Call of Duty is almost never a competitively balanced game. This is best exhibited by the fact that this game's competitive modes, such as ranked and CDL, have attachments, perks, kill streaks, and even entire weapons that are just straight up banned. As in, the developers know that these things are not balanced because they're the ones banning them in the mode, but they're leaving them in anyway for the fun factor, which, you know, on the surface is fine. And then on top of that, the professional players often have to come together themselves and GA things that are still not balanced but are in the game. Going back to Dota for a second, like I said, Dota is an incredibly competitive game, and it was designed that way. I know we Dota players like to complain about things being unbalanced or broken or whatever, but in context, compared to certain things in like Call of Duty, for example, the game is impeccably balanced. In fact, a lot of the things that feel broken in that game only feel so broken because the rest of it is so well balanced. But in this game, that is not the case at all. You have entire weapons or attachments that are just leagues above everything else, and if you're not using them, you are at an inherent disadvantage. Now, historically, this wasn't nearly as much of a problem because the matchmaking allowed for a bit more variety in players' skills, so, you know, it was fine to run around with something off meta or run around with a sniper with a thermal scope, because if you were a good player, you could outplay others to a degree that would allow you to succeed with that goofy weapon or loadout. But yeah, you know, gone are the days of goofy class setups or killing somebody using a gun you've never seen before, because nobody's using guns you've ever seen before. Everybody's using the same 3 guns. Sure, maybe you run into a sniper like me every now and again, but even then, all of us have to use the same 5 attachments because none of the other ones are competitively viable. So yeah, when good players say that there's no match variety, that's really what they mean. There's no real variety in play styles, there's no real variety in weapon choices. At the beginning of the year, there usually is because people are doing camo challenges and stuff, but at this point now, like, yeah, I know I just saw a couple knifers because this is shipment, but if you go into regular quick play, you can't find a knifer if you try. Nobody would even dream of it. Whereas, you know, you go back to the original Modern Warfare 2 or Modern Warfare 3, knifing was a legitimate playstyle. It was a playstyle people made fun of, but you could do it. So yeah, that's the long story short of that situation. It's not that we want to just sit here and smash on bad players all day long, it's just the game gets so repetitive, and when you have to sweat it out for each and every single win using only the same 3 guns all the time, the game gets very old very quickly. And speaking of getting boring, that brings me to my last point. The game's reward system isn't even designed for a competitive environment. I mean, seriously, think about it. In this game, what rewards do you actually get for being competitive in quick play? Obviously, there's no rank in quick play, so there's no real reason to like super try hard for wins. So let's talk about other systems of reward this game has. First of all, there's the obvious reward of just having a good game. You know, getting a lot of kills, having a high KD ratio. You know, as maybe not nice as it is for your opponents, it is fun to play well and have good games on this. But that's kind of off the table now with the matchmaking, because I mean, as far as your performance goes, you're basically at the mercy of the algorithm. How good or bad you are at this game literally has no bearing on it anymore. Back in the day, if you wanted to play better, all you had to do was just get better. You know, practice, learn the maps a little better, fix your loadout, whatever it was you needed to do to improve. If you did it well enough, eventually you would start topping leaderboards, and that was fun. But now it's like, all right, will the game decide to allow me to have fun today, or is it going to be like the lobbies I've been having for this entire video, where I'm just kind of sitting here not enjoying myself and trying not to lose my shit into the microphone? Okay, so that reward's kind of off the table. In that vein, the next reward that this game kind of gives you is being able to get kill streaks. Kill streaks are kind of the point of Call of Duty. They sort of always have been since COD 4. And once again, sort of in that similar vein, it's, you know, really up to the game if you're going to be allowed to have a lobby where you can go on a 7, 8, 9, 10 kill streak. I used to run really high kill streaks back in the day, believe it or not, with the exception of the original Modern Warfare 3, just because the support package was so busted in that game. You know, I used to run chopper gunners, I used to run dogs, I used to run swarm back on Black Ops 2. I went for those high kill streaks, and I used to get them pretty consistently. But I think the last game I really even bothered to run high kill streaks on was Modern Warfare 2019, and even then, that wasn't all the time. A lot of the time I would switch to, you know, lower kill streaks just to be a bit more effective in games. There's no way these guys are this bad. So there you go, 2 of the biggest draws of just playing Call of Duty for fun off the table immediately just because of the matchmaking. And then you've got the last and probably the biggest reward as far as modern Call of Duties go is camo grinding. You know, camo grinding's a big thing every year. The game comes out, people get on, go for Orion, Damascus, Borealis. I don't even remember what the mastery camos are in this game anymore. And I do this too. Every year I have this thing where the game comes out and I go get platinum snipers right away just because it's fun for me. But the thing is, kind of like I was talking about before, this game is not balanced all that well. Every year there are weapons that are good, there are weapons that are bad, and there are weapons that are really bad. And if you want to get the camo challenges done, you have to use all of them. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, yeah, that's the point of a challenge. You're challenging yourself. But that challenge becomes infinitely more annoying when, you know, you're at the end of a long play session and you've been dropping a lot of kills trying to get these camos done. And all of a sudden you're just reaching lobby after lobby of people playing their absolute hardest using meta stuff, practicing for ranked or whatever. It just doesn't make for an engaging long-term experience, you know? And this is why people are addicted to Shipment. It's not because, you know, Shipment's the best map ever made. It's honestly really not. It's just because this is the most efficient way to get things done in lobbies where people are trying their pants off. Like, even though these last few lobbies have been completely sweaty, I've still been getting 50 to 60 kills a pop. If I'm doing camo challenges, this is not a bad way to do it. Anyway, the point of all this rambling is that Call of Duty rewards you for doing a lot of things while you're playing. It rewards you for outplaying and dominating your opponents on an individual level. It rewards you for getting a lot of kills in a short amount of time. It rewards you for handicapping yourself to get kills with different weapons or under certain conditions or with certain attachments. But you know what this game doesn't reward you for? Competing to try to actually win. And that right there is my main point of how this game differs from all these other games where their communities are like, oh, why is Call of Duty complaining that their players have to play against people at their skill level at all times? It's because the game literally does not reward us for doing that. It rewards us for doing a lot of things that are hampered by that. And the thing is, there are ways that they could design these challenges and stuff to make them fun in the context of the matchmaking as it is, but they don't do that. They continue to commit to this age-old, you know, get 50 long shots laying on your belly with a sniper rifle, like get 5 kills without dying X number of times. Like, you see how these gameplay draws become an issue when you have the game be as competitive as it is? Actually, I'll tell you what, you want an example of this done right? Here, I'll show you. Welcome to Dota 2, everybody. A game that, like I said, even in unranked, is extremely competitive. And yet, look at this. I don't have a rank. That means that I must not play ranked in this game. What incentive could there possibly be for me to only play unranked in a game that's this competitive? Well, first of all, let's have a look at the hero roster here for a second. Pretend these are guns in Call of Duty for a moment. Like I mentioned before, this game is impeccably balanced to the point that the vast majority of everything you see on the screen here is pickable. In fact, I would argue nothing on this screen is completely unpickable. Maybe in certain games against certain heroes you can't pick things, like, you know, purely just because of how they interact with each other, I wouldn't be able to pick Huskar if there's like a Bloodseeker in the game, for example, just because they counter each other, but on their own, Huskar and Bloodseeker are both very good heroes. So that's point number one. The variety in this game is quite good. I can pick whatever I want, other people can pick whatever they want, and it's fine. The next thing I want to point out is camo challenges, or this game's version of camo challenges. So if we take a look at my buddy Arc Warden here, as you can see, heroes in this game actually have a level to them, kind of like weapons in Call of Duty. Arc Warden, I'm currently at level 11, I'm a little under halfway towards level 12. And if you do these challenges, you get fun little things, you get voice lines that you can use. Like if I get to level 12, which gets me to gold tier, I can use this. That might be fun to flame somebody with, I don't know. But the important thing is these levels come with challenges. Now back over on Call of Duty, I was just complaining that challenges really aren't fun to do in a super competitive environment. But this also depends on how the challenge is designed. Like, let's take a look at some of these. So my first challenge here, earn 150, 200, 250 or more last hits. That's literally just through playing the game. I don't have to be better than anybody else, I can just do that. Deal 6,000, 8,000 or 10,000 damage to enemy heroes with spark rate. All that involves is me just pressing the E button. There is nothing more complicated than that about this hero. This last one here is a little bit complicated. Hit 2 or more enemy heroes with Gleipnir a total of 3, 6, or 9 times. But even for this one, 2 heroes are going to be standing near each other more often than not, and then I just have to press this button and voila! Gleipnir hits 2 targets, easy peasy. Now obviously these aren't perfect examples, and Dota definitely has a lot of things about it that aren't fun due to its competitive nature, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that when a game is designed to be that competitive, it can still be fun, but Call of Duty just isn't designed that way, anyway, so what's the point of trying to make it like that? Don't get me wrong, I understand the principle behind trying to make sure everybody has a good time, but you gotta understand, the solution to some people having fun and some people not having fun is not to make everybody's experience equally mediocre. There are better ways to go about this, I promise. Anyway, that's about it for this one. Like I said at the beginning, sorry if my ranting and rambling was all over the place. I don't really write scripts for these, to be honest. I really should. I do hope I got my point across, though. This is, on some level, a good thing. I'm glad that they addressed it. I'm glad that they're at least saying, hey, we understand that this is a point of contention for the community. Let's talk about it. But at the same time, I do wish they'd been a bit more forward with things, especially stuff that we didn't already know. And I really do wish they would be a bit more willing to at least attempt to tweak the matchmaking in some way instead of just committing to this vision that, I don't know, at the very least for the last 3 to 4 years straight has just ruined the experience for me. And as always, if you did enjoy this video, definitely make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you want to come back for more content. That's about it. I'll see you guys in the next one.